Good morning. Today we are working on our last graph for this unit. We are doing circle graphs today. So CO65 with our circle graphs. So a circle graph can also be called a pie chart. I need to squeeze this over. Alright, so our circle graph is also called a pie chart. It is a graph that displays data as sections of a circle. The entire circle is 100% of all the data. So if we had 28 people in the class take a test, that 100% of the circle is all 28 scores. So we use a circle graph to represent those percentages. Because we think that whole circle is 100%. So when we want to look at percents, we look at circle graphs. Here's an example of a circle graph showing the result of a survey about foreign language studies. What percent of students studied French? So if we look at this graph, how many studied French? Michael?
30%.
Yeah, it's right here, 30%. Our French was that yellow section, and we can see that yellow section is 30%. If 100 students were surveyed, how many study Italian? We can see Italian's that green, 10% studied Italian. How many would that be if there's 100 students? What is 10% of 100? Audrey?
10%.
We want a number though, not the percentage. So we want to know what 10% of 100 would be. Who remembers what math we do when we see that word of? Alex?
Multiplication.
Multiply. So we're going to do 10% times 100. How do I write 10% as a decimal, Jack?
0.1.
Yeah. 0.10 times 100. What is 0.10 times 100? Evelyn? 10. So 10% of 100, we had 10% studied Italian. Of the 100 students means 10 students studied French or Italian. Now we have only 50 students were surveyed. So instead of out of 100, it's going to be out of 50. 50 students were surveyed. How many studied Spanish? Spanish is that pink. It's 55%. So I would say 55% of our total of 50. How many would that be? What is 55% of 50, Michael?
27.5.
Not 27.5. What math did you do? So what decimal is that? So if we do 0.55 times 50, do that math again on your calculator. Okay, so it comes out with 27.5, but does it make sense to say 27.5 students took Spanish? So what would we put as our answer? Can we round up? Can we add people in? So for that one, I know it's a 0.5, and we're used to that 0.5, you round up, but we can't add people into it. So what do you think we would put as our answer, Michael? 27. So we always want to look, what is it that we're finding that number of? We can't have half a person. So we have to take that half a person off and just be down to 27. If 3 students study German, so we have 3 students studying German, how many students studied French? Oh goodness. Now we have to do multi-steps. Because we don't know how many students there are to begin with, right? Because it keeps changing how many total students there are. We don't know the total number of students. So that's our first step. So here, instead of doing, we would do 3 students, 3 students equals, our percentage of German is 5% of, we don't know how many that total is. So that's what we're looking for. So we need to do opposite operations. We know of means we're multiplying. What's the opposite of multiplying, Alex?
Dividing.
We're gonna divide by that 0.5. Sorry, 0.05. So how many students are there total? What is 3 divided by 0.05? So everybody should be doing it on their calculator. 3 divided by 0.05. Jackson? 60. So we know how many total students? There's 60 students. Now, we can find out how many studied French. How do I figure that out? It's like what we were doing up above. So how did we figure it out up above? If we know the total number of students, and we know French is 30%, how many students is that? Do you want to give it a try, Michael? So tell me what math to write down. What do you think we would do? 30% of 60, exactly right. So 0.30 times 60 equals how many, Jackson? $18. So we had 18 students studied French. So for the middle two here, we knew there was 100 students, we knew there was 50 students, so we could just plug it right in. But on the bottom one, we didn't know how many students, so we had to use what we knew to find the total number of students. We knew 3 students studied German, so we had to do this math to find that there was 60 students total. Then we could find that 30% of the French took French, so 30% of the 60. So sometimes you have to do that second step. Let's look at our next one. Survey your class for everyone's favorite pizza topping. Display your results in a circle graph. So we need to come up with some pizza toppings. Who can tell me a pizza topping? Moses. Pickles. What's another pizza topping? Alex.
Pepperoni.
Pepperoni. What's another pizza topping? Vinny.
Pineapple.
One more pizza topping. Audrey. Sausage. All right. So, how many people are here today? We have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 25, 26. Because we only have 27 in our class. So Rhoda's gone, so we have a 26 total. You get to choose which, if you have a one topping pizza, which topping do you want on your pizza? Raise your hand if your topping is going to be pickles. 2 for pickles. Raise your hand if your topping is going to be pepperoni. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, you guys, you can't throw your hand up after I've already counted. Let's put them up again. Keep your hand up. And once I do your table, put your hand down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 15 pepperoni. How many choose pineapple? 1, 2, 3. How many choose sausage? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's see. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 26. 26 total people. So now we have to display this in our graph. So actually, we could take this and put it as, oh no, it's not gonna be a piece. We have that. So, think about how we're going to break that circle up. Can we break it into 4 equal parts?
No.
Why not, Fernanda?
Because there's 26 people.
Yeah. Because there's 26 people, so our full circle is 26. Why can't I break it into 4 equal parts? There's 4 toppings. Why can't I just break it into 4 equal parts, Fernanda?
Because they're different numbers,
They're
they're not all the same.
not all the same numbers. 15 is going to be a small part of the circle or a large part? Large part. So, let's see. Halfway would be 13. So 15 is bigger than 13, so I would probably say that much is our pepperoni. All right, oops, I put it on the wrong side. Bigger than half. Then I would say probably 2, 3, and 6. So let's call this sausage, this pineapple, and our pickles. I love pickles. I can honestly say I've never had pickles on a pizza. That would be interesting to try.
Like a cheeseburger?
Pizza. I've never had a cheeseburger pizza. I've had a taco pizza. Cheeseburger pizza, that would taste good with pickles. Okay, so for our key, we're gonna write our toppings. What do you think we need to put next to those toppings? Look up above. What do we put next to the toppings, Jack?
The percentage.
The percentage. So we need to figure out our percent. So we know there's 26 total. We know the number of people for each topping. So now we need to find our percent. So if we know pepperoni has 15 out of 26 total, it's like doing our test grades. Right, if you got 15 points right out of 26, I would write it as a fraction. So 15 wanted a pepperoni out of 26. What math do I do to find my percentage of when I have a fraction? What math am I gonna do? What does that fraction bar tell me to do? Michael? Division. What is 15 divided by 26? Jackson? So we get 0.576. So what do we have to do? Round it which way, Jackson? So we look at that 6. Does that 6 tell us that our 7 is going to stay the same or round up? Round up. So it's going to be 0.57. So if I have 0.58, what percent would that be, Jackson? 58%. For our sausage, we have 6 out of 26. What percent would that be? Matt? 23%. Let's look at our pineapple. What is our percentage of pineapple? Fernanda?
0.115.
So we had 3 divided by 26, which gave us 0.115. So what percent would that be, Fernanda?
12%.
Yep, 12%, because that 5 tells us to round that 1 up. And pickles. Pickles, we have 2 out of our 26. So what percent is that? Jackson?
0.076.
So what would 0.076 become? What percentage? 8%. Now, if we had perfect numbers, it would equal 100%. So let's look, 58 plus 23 plus 12 plus 8, that gives us 101% because we were rounding up on so many of those. So it rounded up to 101%. So it's not always going to be perfect. When we take the test, we're gonna have perfect numbers that will work to exactly 100%. Okay, let's look at our work page for today. The biggest thing to remember is that it's out of 100% and how to find those percentages. So if we add all these percentages up for what we would, we need to look at what a title would be for this circle graph. Groceries, automobiles, utility bills, dining out, healthcare, savings, and other expenses. What do you think would be a good title for this graph? What do all of these different percentages have to do with? What do you think, Haley? Bills. Or like your budget, right? What am I spending my money on? So it would be like your monthly budget, where your money is going. What bills are you paying? So I need to spell my words right. So every month I'm gonna put so much in for my car. I'm gonna put so much money in for groceries. If we added all those percentages up, what's it going to equal? Fernanda? 100%. The full circle is 100%. So we're gonna say 100% of our money for the month, our monthly paycheck, is $2,000. How much money is put into savings? How do we find that? What math do we have to do, like from our front page? How much money are we putting into savings? So we find our savings is 23% of our paycheck is going into savings. What math am I going to do, Matt? That 23% times our $2,000. So what is 23% of 2,000, Leo? $460. Does that logically make sense? 23% is a little less than a fourth of our paycheck. It's going to be smaller than 2,000, right? It's going to be smaller than a half. So 460 logically makes sense. If I had gotten 2,500, I'd go, ooh, I went off somewhere. How can I put more money than what I made into savings? So you always have to look back on it. If $180 is spent on utilities, how much is your paycheck going to be? Your paycheck is that total amount. So we had to figure that out on the first page when we had to figure out how many was that whole number. So remember, we have our equation that we're using. The part equals the percent times the whole. Right, so when we looked up here, we wanted to know our part equaled the percent times the whole. Well, now we want to figure out that whole. Do we know our part? Yeah, our part is 180. So 180 equals, do we know the percent? What's our percent? 12%, because those utility bills were 12%. Times, we're looking for the whole amount. So if we're gonna do opposite operations, how do we do that? How do I solve for my whole? You wanna give it a try, Jack?
Sure. Is it 180 divided by 0.12?
Exactly, we want the whole by itself. We are multiplying, so I know I need to divide both sides by that 12%. 12% divided by 12% cancels out. What is 180 divided by 0.12, Jack?
1,500.
Does it make sense that our whole would be a lot bigger than 180? Yeah, because that's our whole paycheck. So that utilities bill is going, or utilities portion is going to be a lot smaller than our whole paycheck. So you need to write down this equation. That is key for how we solve our percentages. We need to know the percentage equation. The part equals the percent times the whole. Bryn and Avery, I need you guys to stop chit-chatting with each other, okay? So if you know the percent that's in our circle, sometimes you know the whole. We had a $2,000 paycheck. Sometimes you know the part, $180 on the utilities. fill in what you know and then solve it. If you're solving for the whole, you have to do opposite operations. If you're solving for the part, you just multiply. Does that make sense? But this is key. You need to know that. So we know what equation we're putting the information that we know. Let's look at the last question having to do with that graph. If $725 is spent on groceries and dining out together, how much is the paycheck? So we know that part of $725 for our two sections. So groceries and dining out together is $725. We want to know how much that whole paycheck is. Who can tell me what the equation's gonna look like that we are going to solve for? What do you think, Joy?
725
Equals what percent?
equals
Which would be what? Yeah, we have to add these two together because they combined them to be $725. So we have to combine their percentages. So 21% plus 8% gives me that 29, 0.29. And we're looking for that whole, the whole paycheck. So how do I solve that? Joy? Yeah, we divide out that 0.29. We have to do opposite operations to get the whole by itself. What is 725 divided by 0.29, Joy? 2,500. We are looking for that whole paycheck. So it makes sense that it's going to be a much bigger number than that 725. So we use the same equation, we fill in what we know, solve for what we don't know. You are going to do the bottom graph questions by yourself using this equation. Then you're going to do your time for review. We are filling in what these different things have to do with our graphs. So let's look at that time for review. We're going to look for keywords. Which graph would we use for the times of people that are finishing a race using 5-second intervals? We only had one graph that used intervals. You're going to write that graph name on there. This one, we have a graph using quantity. So you're going to look for which of those graphs we've learned that uses quantity. Remember, underneath each of our graph names that had what we use them for. So you're going to look back on those graphs, looking at those keywords, seeing what we use them for. Any questions on the circle graph? Okay, remember this is our last objective, so you need to understand all the different graphs. If there's a graph that you're not sure about, we have review tomorrow. If you're still not sure, remember, I'm after school on Wednesday. This week, Wednesday, I'm only after until 2:30, then I have a meeting. I'm also after school on Thursday. We have our test in class on Thursday. But you can always stay after if there's one that you know you didn't know. Get some extra help so you'll be able to do a retake on it easily because I want you to learn it. Okay. If you have retakes from the last test that you still have to do, we want to get those done Wednesday and Thursday after school because we're already on to our next test. So be staying after Wednesday and Thursday. So if you didn't get all of your retakes done this past Friday, plan on staying after Wednesday and Thursday. Talk to mom and dad about it. If you finish the circle graph and there's still time left in class, Gifts of the Holy Spirit, make sure you have that checked off. Khan Academy is due on Thursday. Make sure you have those at 100%. And packet number 11 is due on the 5th. Work on that. If you are watching from home, I hope you are well and I hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.